Hey, thanks for joining the Credit Firm Inc. podcast. Once again, my name's Dennis Hubbard, CEO, founder of Credit Firm Inc. And again, as you guys are starting to see the difference between what it is we do and talk about versus anybody else in the debt recovery space or the field of credit, it's around these FICO Classic scores. Of course, I can dig in deep in any part of the credit, any one of the algorithms, but a lot of the stuff we're going to share on these next few podcasts is around that FICO Classic credit score, and because it's so important. Why is it so important? 100% of your mortgage lenders use that score. 90% of all your other lenders use this 30-year-old FICO Classic algorithm that doesn't do the same things as the feedback you're getting from your consumer score. But today I want to talk about some of these other debt recovery businesses, which is, there's 3 or 4 within this space. There's credit repair companies. You see them all over the place. There's debt settlement companies. There are, the new buzz seems to be these companies or programs to add a bunch of newer trade lines to your credit. And then now the new thing are these do-it-yourself AI-generated programs, right, that you can do yourself. And here's the problem. All this information is done from the perspective of the consumer scores. But even then, the problem goes much deeper. For example, credit repair. Well, Dennis, aren't y'all credit repair? Yes, we are, but more specifically, we are FICO Classic score specialist, or easier to say because people recognize this, a mortgage score specialist. And I think that's important. Again, I'll say it 1,000 times, 90% of your lenders use that score. Well, I pull FICO, that's what I subscribe to. Hold on, FICO Classic. There's about 8 different models between what you're watching on your FICO, your Experian that you're subscribed to versus what the lender's seeing. And there's about 30 years difference, right? So this is a big deal. That's like saying, well, it says right there on the bottom of my monitoring that I subscribe to, it says right there, 90% of all the lenders use the FICO. Well, this is true, but that would be like saying 90% of all the lenders drive a Ford. Which one, a Ford Expedition or a Ford Escort, right? It's a giant difference. Matter of fact, today's consumer FICO 8 score is actually closer related to your Credit Karma Vantage score in many, many cases. It's certainly closer to that score than it is to the FICO Classic scores that your lenders use. So again, this is why we talk about this. This is why it's so important. So through that lens, that's a big thing that we need to discern through when we're considering hiring some other companies out there to do this for us. Or if you're even looking to do it yourself and following some of the content out there. So follow my content because I'm going to show you, I'm going to expose this, and we're going to be very transparent with this, or call us and we'll do it for you. But nonetheless, these credit repair companies are kind of like giving a 2-year-old a hammer. Everything becomes a nail. The hammer and nail approach is not the right approach. Now, rewind 10 years ago, this dispute process that they use and continue to use, and everybody gets fancier with their dispute process. Guys, it doesn't work like it used to. And we really dive in this deep, but the bottom line is there is no longer, these disputes are not being corresponded between the bureau and the furnisher through mail anymore. It's done electronically. Most all of your collection agencies are now subscribed to eOscar, and they're simply punching verified as soon as that dispute came in. And I'm telling you, 99% of the credit repair companies out there, this is simply all they do. They're just disputing your credit. Dispute the credit bureau. The bureau has to notify the furnisher. The furnisher has 30 days to respond. And if they don't respond, it comes off. Well, yeah, but this credit repair company has these proven letters. Well, this credit repair company, their letters are written by an attorney. Well, this credit repair company handwrites their letters. Horse crap, it does not matter. By the time it goes into the credit bureaus, it's transferred into one of about 20 different 2-digit codes indicating the dispute reason, which is a sentence long. That's what is delivered to the furnisher on the other side. And do you honestly think, in most cases, that employee is stopping what they're doing, pulling your file, investigating this? No, they're simply clicking verified. This is the reason why industry average on disputes only get 20 to 25% industry average deletions. And a good company might get more, but over several rounds of this. And most of those, the debt probably sold and it's on its way in the form of another third-party collection agency. And more importantly, if y'all been watching my videos, if we go back to the tube, I mean, that's great. Well, they got 40%. Well, what if they got 70%? That'd be way above average. But what if they didn't get the right 30? Because remember, if we don't get the stuff here in the front from the eyes of the FICO Classic score, your score's not going to move much. We've got to get them all, and certainly the ones that are in the front, the ones that are putting that ceiling on your credit score. There's several methods that we use, and I'm not sharing all this information to try to promote us. I'm sharing the information because I want to help you. It saddens me. Every day I meet clients that spend a lot of money with other companies still looking for help. And the only reason they reached out to them in the first place was because their mortgage lender said, you have to call these guys. Well, I'm giving up. I'm not going to waste my time. I've already paid for credit repair companies. And they're like, no, you have to call these guys. And they'll say, the only reason we're calling you is because our lender swore by you. Otherwise, we're so frustrated. We're so over this. We were just going to renew our lease. And thank God they do, because normally we can find the issue and come up with a resolution in a hurry or come up with a plan. But nonetheless, if you don't get the right derogatory off, your scores are not going to move, or at least not move to the level that you need them to. Because we understand how that algorithm works, we know where to aim. Now, credit repair companies, back to credit repair companies, are only sending out this dispute verbiage, right, in 99% of the cases. You can't do that. If we're going to talk credit repair, so for example, we do multiple things when it comes to getting this negative stuff off of your credit. And it's not just credit repair, and we'll get to that here in a second, but just using the method of not paying anybody, we're just trying to use the system to get it off, you need to be talking to the furnishers. And in future videos, I'll talk more specifically what that looks like, but you need to be going to the furnishers as well. You need to leverage a case. You don't just send one effort and go, well, it didn't work. The first effort's probably not going to work. It's not like, well, they didn't respond and they're still on there. It's not like when you're dealing with the credit bureaus that if they don't respond within the 30 days, it automatically comes off, right? Well, when you're dealing with the furnisher, there is no automatic button. You've got to motivate this guy. So we talk about in details on what we do to motivate those guys, plus what to do when they do fail to validate. We talk about, part of our program and what we do is also how to full circle into an MOV that works. A method of verification. Again, we'll talk about all those details, but there's multiple things that need to happen in today's business in credit repair to get the effective results. Well, then, Dennis, why don't more people do that? Because it's too much work. It's too much tracking. The technology, all these softwares out there everybody's subscribing to, it's simply not designed to be able to do this in the masses. Sending and filing disputes are. And this is the reason why we have 18 employees. This is the reason why our margins are probably less than anybody else's, because of all the extra efforts that are going in to get this stuff removed off of your credit. But even then, we don't get 100% off. So what do you do then? Well, you can consider settling, which leads to the next company in the debt recovery space. And that's these debt settlement companies, right? This is dangerous, so dangerous. Again, another company that is like handing a 2-year-old a hammer, everything becomes a nail. And so what does a debt settlement company do? They take all of your debt, all of your unsecured debt anyways, and they tell you to stop paying it and let it charge off. You then start paying them one monthly payment. Now, listen, you're going to have to ask a lot of questions because they might tell you some things that allude to something differently. But at the end of the day, they tell you to stop paying it. Those accounts charge off. You're sending your money to them. And it's a trust account, so it's your money too, after they take all of their fees that you agreed to for them to take out of the contract. And then as they build it up and they negotiate the debt and they pay themselves first off the negotiated amount, then they settle it. Okay, that sounds great. Well, but, I don't have to worry about it. They settle those debts for me. So I feel pretty comfortable doing that. And they've got some experts there that are going to really help get that debt settled for a whole lot less than I could. Oh, horse crap. One of my entry-level jobs is debt settlement. My grandma can settle a debt for 50 cents on the dollar and many times 35 cents on the dollar. And these guys are doing it no differently. The difference is now they're adding another 15 to 25% commission that they're charging you that is prearranged in the money that you're saving that has to be covered first, plus the amount accumulated equal to the amount they settled for before they even settled the debt. So you didn't save 50 cents on the dollar. You didn't save 50% on that debt. You might have saved 25%, not counting all the little fees that came out along the way. So it's not a good idea. The other thing that's not a good idea is they're settling debts that they shouldn't settle in many cases. So I don't like this idea. What do you mean they shouldn't settle it? Well, again, we talked about before that you could settle the wrong debt and it brings it back to the front. So if we're trying to recover from a storm in life, what's the quickest, most efficient way to do that? And there is a better way. Then there's these companies adding all these trade lines. Hey, let's have your rent report to your credit. Or you know what? We have this Chime card. It's a debit account that it'll show on your credit like a credit card. And all these little trade lines that'll hit your credit. Well, your FICO Classics, first of all, they don't look at self-reporting accounts like that. And in some cases, a secured loan at your credit union says, well, why don't you give us $500? We'll do a $500 loan against it, and then you pay it back, and that'll help establish some credit. Well, that's great, but it's very minimal. It's certainly not going to outweigh the negative. And in some cases, that could hurt you because new accounts can penalize you more than it benefits you on on-time payments. So there's better alternatives to that, but to which client? Well, I want to add an authorized user. I found this company that they'll add this 15-year-old authorized user to my credit with this $35,000 limit, and it cost me $1,400. And I find out, I'm looking at this guy's credit. This is a real story. I've got tons of them, but as I'm telling you this, I'm imagining this real conversation that I had. And the client says, hey, Dennis, I went ahead and did this. It was this weekend. And he goes, but I got it for $1,400. It's like, in this case, I think it was close to a 20-year-old card. It had a $30,000 limit. And he said, they'll leave it open on my credit for 6 months. Man, this is going to jump me. He said, the last guy jumped 75 points. And I looked at him and said, no, sir. I said, in your case, it's not going to jump you at all. He says, oh, yeah, it will. Oh, yeah. I said, I promise you it's not. And I said, here's why. Your utilization's already optimized. You can't optimize. I said, now the length of the age of the card's going to help you a little bit because it's one of your older cards in this sense. I said, but it's probably not going to be more than 7 points. And I'll be darned if I didn't predict it perfectly. It bumped him 7 points for $1,400, only to lose the points when they closed it later on. So that's silly. But having said that, there's times and places that an authorized user for the right person, right situation is a great alternative. There's a time and place that some of these secured loans or secured credit cards or whatever could be a benefit. But don't just go blindly adding a bunch of trade lines, spending all this money thinking it's going to help you. When the algorithm, first of all, is designed to penalize you for too many new loans in a short period of time. Not counting the inquiry that's on it in a lot of cases. So we want to get the right stuff. And besides that, we talk about this in detail too, is on-time payments, which you have to do, you don't get much credit for it. And it by far does not outweigh the negative stuff in the way these algorithms work. You got to do it. You got to pay everything on time. You certainly don't want to be late. My point is not against that. My point is the idea of saying, well, the more accounts I have with more on-time payments, the quicker I'm going to recover. This is not a good plan. And that's certainly what the market seems to sell. Okay, so don't do that. It's not a good alternative. We're seeing a lot of the new DIY programs that are AI assisted. Hey, sounds pretty cool. I'd do that before I do a credit repair company. Today's credit repair company, not us, obviously, but today's credit repair company, I'd certainly would do that first before I would use them. All day long, I would do that. Because that way, at least, if all we're going to do is send disputes, it's not going to cost me nowhere near as much as hiring somebody else to do it. It formulates all the dispute stuff. You click go and you mail it off, and at least your mail's coming from you instead of some third-party company, so that'll help increase your chances of the dispute being processed, but you're still not going to get the results. There needs to be other methods. Again, this This I got a hammer and everything is a nail approach is not the way to go. So the way to go is this. Recognize when there's a certain account that you might need to settle. Recognize when there's a certain account that you might need to do a pay for deletion on. Combine some credit repair strategies in the meantime with everything else. If there's not a deadline issue, then continue that process, narrow it down as much as you can, and then what's in front of the tube? What's blocking my score from hitting the next level? Well, it's that big one. That dollar amount has nothing to do with it. Remember, it's all about the age. And it's also all about the type of account. So just again, for an example, if a client came in and said, well, Dennis, I'm planning on buying a house for a year. And this client has 16 different things going on. And 15 of those 16 things are third-party collection agencies. And maybe one of those same ones is a World Finance charged-off account. And then there's this charged-off First Premier credit card that they still own the balance on. He says, but I'm not doing something for a year. Well, then this guy, let's go through the restoration process. Obviously, like I said before, we're not going to just dispute. We're going to dispute. We're going to go directly to the furnishers. We're going to build cases against them. We're going to leverage those. Each round is going to either get the deletion or it's going to build strength. And we get all the way to the end. We're threatening to sue, filing FTCs, filing all kinds of stuff to immediately get them off because they failed to validate. They violated our rights. Maybe all full circle into an MOV, a method of verification with the bureaus. And let's narrow this thing down. Heck, we might knock off 100% of this. But if not, if this First Premier is still on there and we put an asterisk on it, you're going to want to settle that account. Fair enough, fair enough. We knock it off, we don't worry about it. If we zero it out, we don't worry about it. They sell it to a third-party collection agency, we'll intercept it before the third-party collection agency posts it on your credit and then settle that. So instead of trying to settle 18 different debts, we settle one. We use credit repair to get the rest off. Instead of only getting 25% of the negative off, we get way more than that and only settle who we need to. Well, what if there's more than just one on there? Well, I don't know. Let's have the conversation. Is it a 6-year-old third-party collection that's not doing much to your credit score? Leave it alone. They did everything they're supposed to do. We're not going to get them off. Didn't happen very often, but let's pretend it did. We'll leave them alone. Let it fall off. It's keeping you from buying your house. It's not keeping you maybe from being a 700s. But this guy, right? So understanding this is going to help you custom that thing perfectly. The next customer might come in, or next situation, I'm trying to buy a house in a month. Okay, different conversation. Hey, you know what? Let's use some methods on this because I know I can knock these off between now and a month. But this guy right here, let's settle him. So let's just end with this. Watch and subscribe to these videos. I'm going to show you how to age these accounts, recognize these accounts, to understand, well, which one's keeping me from being over that next level of the score that I need to qualify? Which one's creating the ceiling? Which one can I ignore? What are some of these methods I can do to get them off? Which ones? Now, Dennis, you told me earlier, you're kind of conflicting yourself here. You said, be careful settling debts that it could cause it to re-age and drop your credit score. Matter of fact, Dennis, I've read that and Googled that many times. Well, this is all true. We're going to talk about the differences when you can and when you can't. And even in those can'ts, what are some alternatives around that? So we'll talk about that. I'm going to expose all this to you. And if you can't wait, call us and we'll go over a specific plan directly for you. But in the meantime, I'm going to share the information with you. The information that's taken me thousands and thousands and thousands of credit bureaus since 2009, and it's absolutely proven. Absolutely 100%. You guys have seen our testimonials. There's 50 to 75 clients a month that are closing on new homes that couldn't otherwise through our program. We're not huge. There's 18 employees, but there's only 5 counselors. To put that into perspective, 75% of all of our clients that come through the program become mortgage score ready. 75%. The other 25% just don't complete the program, or something else happens, or a new storm, or whatever the case is. And those are huge, huge numbers. And the only way we're going to do that is by understanding this algorithm and all the many other methods that we can use, and not just get so locked into one way of doing things. Let's customize it. Let's make it realistic. Let's make it make sense. So I hope this blesses you. We'll see you on the next one.